Opposing the bill by Autumn Hanna and Henry Sokolowski in the National Review Online states, quote, the total number of projects this bill grandfathers, could I have a half a minute?
Gentleman's time has expired.
An additional 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1
minute.
States
that the total number of projects this bill grandfathers isn't publicly available. Par for the course with this highly secretive program. But we know it's a lot. Our research points to nearly 100 projects that claim to have applied. If this was really about being fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money, we'd be targeting the projects that have the highest probability of failing and carry the highest price tag and preclude them. But the bill does the opposite. What we should be doing is continuing our efforts to invest in renewables, understanding some of them may not work, but that's the future. It's cleaner, it's safety, it protects the globes. That's where the jobs are of tomorrow. We have to stop China from eating our lunch on these nuclear, alternative energy projects. We have to reclaim this for America. Bring the jobs here, create the jobs here. The money's there. Don't go giving it to nuclear. Nuclear is dead in the water unless government tries to resurrect it by giving away billions of dollars in taxpayers' money that will never be recovered.
It's expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserved. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I think it's very obvious that what Republicans are trying to do is to keep American jobs. We're trying to utilize the free enterprise system, the natural resources that we have in America, clean, natural gas, the abundance of other power that we have, including coal, including nuclear, opportunities to keep America strong and keep jobs here. And that's why we're really opposed to the loan guarantees and the things which might take on additional debt and risk by the government, but more importantly, if it can't be funded within the free enterprise system, then it can't stand on its own. Mr. Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield to the gentleman, one of my colleagues from Roseville, California, the gentleman, Mr. McClintock, for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, this bill ends the Title 17 loan guarantees that produced Solyndra and so many other alternate energy scams that cost Americans hundreds of millions of dollars, while the politically connected perpetrators of these scams walked away wealthy men and women. But this measure does still put taxpayers on the hook to loan out billions of dollars more to at least 50 additional shady alternate energy schemes that had been submitted under the same title prior to January 1st. So there will be more Solyndras under this bill. I'd offered an amendment to pull the plug on the applications, but I was told don't bother. The Rules Committee won't allow the amendment to be brought to the floor. So I support the bill, but I do agree with my friend from Ohio that the title, No More Solyndras Act, is a bit misleading. I would suggest an alternative, the 50 more Solyndras, and then we'll stop wasting your money. Really, we promise Act. Yield back.
Yields back. The gentleman from Texas reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman who just spoke for pointing out how bad this rule is. He's on the other side of the aisle, and even though I disagree with the amendment he had, he ought to have been able to offer on the floor. I hope that he will join with us in opposing this rule, because I don't think his leadership will get the message if he rewards bad behavior by giving them a vote. So at this point, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fatah.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. I'm opposed to the rule. I'm opposed to the bill. But I'm really opposed to the thinking behind this. This is like Back to the Future or the Flat Earth Society or something. I don't know how we would have a space program if one failure stopped the whole show. I don't know how we would never, I mean, Michael Jordan was kicked off his high school basketball team, but he eventually learned how to put the ball in the basket. The notion that as the greatest nation on earth, we're going to cede to others alternative energy programs, that somehow we're unwilling to go through what is necessary to be successful in this field doesn't make any sense. Now, President Bush signed this into law. It's a great program. In fact, John Rogers, who's the CEO of Duke Energy, said just a few days ago that in terms of energy, America is so much better off because of this administration's all-of-the-above strategy. For the first time in 30 years, we got nuclear plants that have been licensed. We have natural gas. We got oil. We have renewables. I've supported these loan guarantee programs. And like any loan program, you might have some loans that perform and some loans that don't perform. The vast majority of these loans perform very, very well. And America is better off for it. I was at the Israeli embassy last night speaking to a group of scientists. They've been so far ahead of us on renewable energy, it's a shame. We have seen what Germany's done on wind. This party that is in the majority here that wants to do away with the wind energy credit, I don't know what the notion here is that somehow we as a country are not prepared to pay the price for progress. We have not won every battle in wars that we've been in, but we've won the war. And so this is a company in which the numbers didn't add up for us. It's like one of our rockets or satellites not performing properly. But the head of NASA says that we're not in a business in which we can not take risks. We have to take risks. And when it comes to energy, our country has to be prepared to take risks. Now, it was Albert Einstein who said, we cannot use the same level of thinking to solve problems that we use to create these problems. This country and our status as the leading nation in the world requires us to take risks. And if this majority is so unimpressed with the ability of Americans and Americans to innovate and to compete in the renewable sector like others around the world who are also getting help from their governments, that is unfortunate. But for me, I believe that America has to take risks. We're going to lose. We're going to win. But at the end of the day, as we learn and go forward, it will allow us to continue to be number one. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I have no additional speakers and reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we ought to have a debate in this chamber on energy, on energy policy, whether or not we should invest in innovation, whether or not we should invest in renewable, green, clean energy. I believe we should. My friends on the other side of the aisle believe not just in the status quo, they believe in going backwards. They believe in investing not in new technologies but in the old technologies. But we should have that debate here. This bill really is not that debate because this bill is a political stunt. It is not anything real. It is not anything that is going anywhere. This is just politics as usual. And that's what makes this so frustrating. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to end where I began in my opening, and that is, we're only here for a few days. I mean, I've never been part of a Congress that has worked less than this Congress and has produced less than this Congress. Today's roll call is a great piece, Congress on pace to be the least productive. I mean, is that what my friends on the other side of the aisle aspire to be known as the least productive Congress? You know, we're back for these few days. We ought to do something meaningful for the American people. We ought to be debating a jobs bill. We ought to bring the President's jobs bill to the floor. You don't want to vote for it, vote against it. But at least we're doing something of substance. We ought to be extending tax breaks for middle-income Americans. I mean, why would you leave town without making sure that middle-income Americans continue to get their tax breaks? We ought to have a responsible farm bill passed and signed into law. As we're running out of time, we're told that's probably not going to happen at all. You know, we ought to be talking about legislation that actually will strengthen this country, that will help improve the quality of education, more access to education for our young people. We're doing none of those things. We're squandering this opportunity. These 8 days that we're back in session, with the exception of passing a continuing resolution, which is tantamount to kicking the can down the road, these 8 days have been useless. They've just been about politics. And that is why the American people are so sick and tired of this Congress. That is why the approval rating is so low. They want us to come to Washington to legislate and deliberate on issues that will make a positive difference in their lives. And instead, what we have is the same old, politics as usual. There has to be some common ground between Republicans and Democrats on energy. Let's find that common ground and move forward. Enough with the political stunts. Enough with the political stunts. It is time to start doing the people's business. And this is not it. So I urge my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, to vote against this, again, restrictive rule that denies a multitude of amendments, including an amendment that would make sure the jobs that we're talking about are in America, by American. What is so wrong with even debating that? We're not even given that opportunity. So vote against this restrictive rule and vote against the underlying bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Obviously, we can see that today's legislation answers the question. It ends the debate about Solyndra. Taxpayers know the committee did their work, held a Rules Committee hearing. $500 million was lost by Solyndra. We're not down here jumping up and down. We haven't even raised our voice. We simply said we think that a better process could have taken place. And they're arguing we never should have even had this on the floor. We don't need any feedback. Everybody already knows. Well, here's what they know. We lost $500 million by one company, at least two others, the same outcome of where they did not produce anything. They went belly up, bankrupt. And we just think that the administration, government, is really not in the business and shouldn't be into, despite what we've heard about pushing the envelope. Let's go out there and invest whether it makes sense or not. Losing money is still a bad proposition. Republicans think it's a bad proposition. Lots of arguments today that the government did the right thing, this administration did the right thing. I think that the facts of the case say that $500 million and a process that didn't work. We need to hear the feedback. We need to close the books on it. And the rule is here to do exactly that, to place on the floor the opportunity for us to debate now the facts of the case, which is exactly what will happen. So I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question.
Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted, and without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, by direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 778 and ask for its immediate consideration.
Clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 160, House Resolution 778. Resolved that upon the adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 117, making continuing appropriations for fiscal year 2013 and for other purposes. All points of order against consideration of the joint resolution are waived. The joint resolution shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the joint resolution are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the joint resolution and on any amendment thereto to final passage without intervening motion, except 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations, and 2, 1 motion to recommit. Section 2. Upon the adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the bill, H.R. 6365, to amend the Balanced Budget and Emergency Deficit Control Act of 1985 to replace the sequester established by the Budget Control Act of 2011. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. The bill shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and on any amendment thereto to final passage without intervening motion except 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Budget, and 2, 1 motion to recommit.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I'd like to yield the customary 30 minutes to my good friend from Florida, Mr. Hastings, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only, and I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, House Resolution 778 is a closed rule for consideration of 2 bills, H.R. 6365, which is the National Security and Job Protection Act, and H.J. Res. 117, which is the Continuing Appropriations Resolution Act for FY13. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm a freshman on the Rules Committee. It's a good committee to be on. I enjoy to get to work with learned members like my friend from Florida across the aisle, but it falls to me to handle continuing resolution bills. And as you remember, when we showed up at the beginning of 2011, there was a lot of unfinished business from 2010, and we went right into continuing resolution after continuing resolution after continuing resolution, sometimes 2 and 3 weeks at the time. That's no way to run a government. It's no way to have a Congress. My friend from Florida and I disagree on a great deal of policy, but we believe that a deliberative process yields better results than the right here, right now, hurry up and wait kind of mentality that this body so often adopts. And so what we've done here today with this bill, this H.J. Res. 117, is to say we understand that the appropriations responsibilities of this Congress have not yet been completed. The Constitution gives this Congress, not just this body, but this Congress, the responsibility of providing appropriations for this nation. Now, as the Speaker knows full well, this House has set about getting its business done. We divide those appropriations bills up across a number of bills. You know, the Commerce Justice Science Bill passed this House with a bipartisan majority, went to the Senate. The Senate had no floor action whatsoever. You know, Mr. Speaker, that the Energy and Water Bill passed this House with a bipartisan majority, went to the Senate, and the Senate did nothing with it whatsoever. You know that the Homeland Security Committee passed this body, again, bipartisan majority, went to the Senate took no action. I can go on and on and on, the Ledge Branch Bill, the Military Construction Bill, the Defense Bill, on and on and on. And so here we are. We don't have control over the Senate, Mr. Speaker. We only have control over what goes on here in this body. And I got to tell you, I'm proud as a freshman that we set about getting our business done, and one deliberative bill at the time, one open rule on appropriations bills at the time, we allowed every member of this body to come to the floor, to offer their amendments, to have their voice heard, and produce the very best work product that we could produce. And I might add, Mr. Speaker, we did that at a funding level even lower than what the American taxpayer asked of us in the Budget Control Act. I'm very proud of that work. But in the absence of the Senate taking action, Mr. Speaker, we have to move on. The American people are going to have a referendum in this country. They're going to have a referendum on what fiscal responsibility means. We're going to have an election in November. New House members are going to come. New Senate members are going to come. The administration may change. We're going to have that opportunity for all of us as citizens to speak out in November and choose a path for 2013. But our business today, Mr. Speaker, is making sure the doors stay open moving into 2013. As my colleagues know, in the absence of action, Mr. Speaker, government offices begin to close on October 1st of this year. One by one, national parks, veteran services, Social Security services, Medicare services. That's not the kind of governing responsibility that we all swore an oath to uphold. So I'm pleased to be here today, Mr. Speaker, to bring this rule to the floor to say, yes, we have gotten our work done in this House, but we have been stymied by the leadership in the Senate that has not scheduled votes on these bills, but we will not allow the American taxpayer and American citizens to pay the price of inaction by the United States Senate. We will make sure that government services continue until this great referendum that this great republic will have in November. This is a 6-month continuing resolution, Mr. Speaker, and it will solve that need. This rule also, Mr. Speaker, provides for consideration of H.R. 6365. It's called the National Security and Job Protection Act, but what it is a sequester replacement bill. I mean, you remember, Mr. Speaker, I don't know that I've ever been more disgusted in my 18 months in this body. We came together here in this House in a bipartisan fashion, we passed the Budget Control Act, which gave 6 House members and 6 Senate members, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats, 12 members of this Congress, esteemed members of this Congress, talented, bright, conscientious, America-loving members of this Congress, an opportunity to look at our entire budget, not just the $3.8 trillion that we'd spend this year, Mr. Speaker, not just that $3.8 trillion, but next year and the year after that and the year after that, well into the 3-generational window, hundreds of trillions of dollars these 12 men and women had an opportunity to look at to find bipartisan agreement. About 4 months they worked on that project, Mr. Speaker. And you know how that story turns out. After 4 months of labor, by 12 of the brightest, most conscientious members of this body, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats, 6 House members, 6 Senate members, looking at hundreds of trillions of dollars in tax expenditures, in social programs, in taxes and tax cuts, agreed on absolutely nothing. Not $1 out of hundreds of trillions did they come together on. That was a tremendous disappointment. Now, as you know, Mr. Speaker, in order to try to bring agreement to that body, we passed legislation that implemented what they call the sequester, to say if, against all odds, this Joint Select Committee were to fail, candidly, it was not on my radar screen that they would. This was a solemn responsibility. These were talented members who were assigned to it. But if they were to fail, we would implement automatic spending cuts that would achieve the kind of budget reductions that every American knows that we need. The problem in this town is spending, and the sequester said we will not fail on this opportunity to address it. Well, that sequester goes into effect in January of next year, and hardest hit will be the United States military. Again, this was a device that was put in place not because folks thought it was the best policy in the room, but to be there as the hammer to say, surely this 12-member committee, this Joint Select Committee, will come to the agreement that will bring us back from this fiscal cliff. Well, they didn't. Now this sequester hangs over the head not just of the United States military, but over Medicare, over social programs. Now again, Mr. Speaker, I'm just so proud to be a freshman member of this House. This House said back in the spring that is an unacceptable outcome. It was never intended to be the outcome. No one ever desired that it be the outcome, and we can change that outcome. And so we passed a sequester replacement right here in this House that went into mandatory spending programs, which is where the real problem is on the budget, as we all know, and said let's replace the sequester that may harm defense cuts, that is going to deal with our military, that's going to put our national security at risk, and let's replace those with spending reductions that make sense. Again, we passed that in the House. The Senate's taken no action whatsoever. And I don't mean to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that they've taken no action on our bill. They most certainly have not, but they're under no obligation to. It's the right thing to do, but they're under no obligation to. But they are under an obligation to do something about it. They are under an obligation to stand up and listen to the same constituents that my colleague from Florida and I listen to say there must be action. We must prevent this tremendous threat to our readiness, to our troops, and to our troops' families. This bill, co-sponsored, or introduced actually in this body by Colonel Allen West of Florida, gives us an opportunity to do just that. And again, in the bipartisan, open-minded way that I think has characterized the 18 months that I've served in this House, because of the leadership of folks like you, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't say you have to use the House-passed bill already. Was it a good bill? Absolutely. Is it the right answer? I believe that it is. But what it says is, use the House-passed bill or use something like it. If you can find a better plan, if the Senate in its wisdom can find a better plan, that's going to work too. It's not our way or the highway. It's that we know there's a right way and a wrong way to deal with our budget challenges, and we want to do it the right way. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of this rule. I rise in strong support of the 2 underlying provisions as well. I look forward to the debate on that this afternoon. We're going to be able to debate these individually, which I believe is the right way to handle these questions of this magnitude, of this importance, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my good friend from my neighboring state of Georgia, who I consider to be one of the most conscientious, hardworking individuals in the Congress. And I appreciate the fact that he's 18 months here in the Congress, but he and I know that he understands this institution considerably, having worked here for a number of years. But I'm grateful the process allows, and he has allowed, that I receive the traditional 30 minutes. Mr. Speaker, this rule provides, as has been said, for consideration of two bills. And to identify them again, H.Res. 117 is the Continuing Appropriations Resolution, and H.Res. 6356 is the National Security and Job Protection Act. When my colleague began his remarks, he said the magic words, "This is a closed rule." When I was, as he, 18 months in the House in 1992, and I would be on radio and people were talking about how awful it was that the Democrats had so many closed rules. The Democrats lost the election that following year in 1994, and one of the leading reasons was closed rules. And yet we find ourselves on something as important as the financial circumstances of this country are coming to the floor at the 11th hour with a closed rule, and in fact, not having many more days that we are scheduled to be here, but having absolutely no reason why we could not be here at any point in time between now and the time that our financial circumstances would begin to be, as they are, much worse. Maybe the Republicans should have added a third entitled resolution. I would call it the No More Getting Anything Done This Congress Act, because that is the message of this particular package. This continuing resolution is merely a reminder that my friends in the majority were unable to complete work on the regular appropriations bills. Instead of devoting congressional time to tackling the needs of essential government programs, Republicans have spent the summer trying to repeal the health care law, giving away benefits to the oil and gas industry, and chipping away repeatedly at women's rights. Now, my colleague is correct in many respects to point out that the other body presents us with challenges. But it is not as if the other body has not done something, and let me tell you one of the measures that I have a continuing interest in because of my constituency, and that is that the Senate has passed a farm bill for a 5-year extension, and what my colleagues or leadership on the Republican side will not do is put that farm bill here on the floor, even though we are faced in this country with the residual from one of the worst droughts that America has ever experienced, and even though food prices for all of the people in this country are continuously rising, and here we are with this time that the chair of the Agriculture Committee and the ranking member begging the leadership cannot find time for it to be on this floor. Instead of devoting our time to tackling the needs of essential government programs, we decide that we're going to attack women's rights. Now suddenly you seem to have awakened to the looming described fiscal cliff. It's kind of good that you've noticed, but rather than address this challenge head on, the Republicans are pushing a bill that doesn't do anything. The sequester replacement does not actually prevent the sequester with a prudent mix, and every panel that has looked at this says that we have to have a prudent mix of spending cuts and revenue increases. What the Republicans simply do is kick the can down the road, which is no surprise. I said in an earlier rules meeting that, and it was during the Olympics, that if kicking the can down the road was an Olympic sport, then Congress and the Republican majority would win gold, bronze, silver, and tin. This poor can doesn't have much more space to be kicked on. And I can tell you it places the burden on someone else to deal with in the future, and this is what my Republican colleagues would call fiscal responsibility. We got into this mess because of the massive deficits the Republicans piled on this country. 2 wars in the Middle East, not paid for, huge tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and those among us that are in a high-paying position, huge unpaid prescription drug benefits. These are all things that Republican members in this House voted for despite the huge cost that would be imposed. In fact, just 61 bills have been signed into law this year, the fewest in more than 60 years. In all of 2011, only 90 bills were signed into law. When Democrats controlled both chambers in 2010, 258 bills were signed into law. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm the only person that this observation is being made, that it is being made. Let me cite 2 people, especially here in the Beltway, that have made this observation and that are generally respected as nonpartisan and accepted as experts by Republicans and Democrats. We on this side are not the only ones who have noticed the lack of productivity that I just identified with the 61 bills. Norman Ornstein and Thomas Mann wrote in a Washington Post column, "We have been studying," the 2 gentlemen, and I'm quoting them, "Washington politics and Congress for more than 40 years, and never have we seen them this dysfunctional. In our past writings, we've criticized both parties when we believed it was warranted. Today, however, we have no choice but to acknowledge that the core of the problem lies with the Republican Party." Now, that's from 2 particularly nonpartisan observers that everybody around here recognizes as experts. Now, we are asked to support the Romney-Ryan vision of America, which ignores any responsibility for today's economic difficulties and instead demands that those who have the least in this great country should sacrifice the most. While Republicans last year were fighting tooth and nail to default on our debt obligations and crash the economy, millions of Americans were fighting to keep their jobs, and millions lost them. Millions of Americans were fighting to pay off their mortgages, and millions could not pay them. Millions of Americans were seeking access to quality health care, and they could not afford them. And millions of children of parents who wanted them to go to college are finding themselves without the capacity to get a decent education, largely for the reasons that I have suggested. But under the Romney-Ryan vision, those priorities should take a back seat to increase defense spending and yet more tax cuts for the wealthiest among us in our society. When it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, student loans, and public safety, the Republicans are quick to dismiss billions of dollars in essential funding with a wave of their hand and the crocodile tears of deficit reduction. But when defense contractors stand to lose just $1, Republicans suddenly find their fighting spirit and cry about a weakening America. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker, that Republicans can't shake off their do-nothing indolence to fight as hard for all Americans as they do for the richest. We have a long list of programs, tax cuts, and activities set to expire at the end of this year. But rather than confront those challenges head-on, Republicans are wasting our time with do-nothing bills. I suppose that when you have absolutely no ideas to offer besides tax cuts for those that are better off among our society, you may as well campaign on a platform of we have no ideas or even a plan to offer. But the American people need and deserve much more. Mr. Speaker, I reject the Republican notion that a do-nothing Congress can help grow our economy, create more jobs, and address the many challenges facing this nation, from crumbling infrastructure to the impossibly high cost of education. And I also reject the Romney-Ryan vision that the only solution, or at least that they have offered to these challenges, are tax cuts that help the rich and increase military spending. My Republican colleagues paint a very pessimistic vision, Mr. Speaker, of a country where it appears to them that we've given up on trying to better everyone's lives and instead use the public's resources to enrich those who've already made it. But I believe differently. We can afford to invest in our future. We can afford to create jobs. And we can afford to make the choices now that will reap benefits for future generations. Right now, I deserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as may consume before I yield to my freshman colleague from Pennsylvania to say to my friend from Florida, I don't think you heard the word Democrat come out of my mouth during my presentation, except to talk about those things on which we've cooperated together. There are absolutely challenges in this chamber. But the challenges I'm talking about are challenges with the United States Senate. Democrats and Republicans in this body came together to pass 7 of the 12 appropriations bills this cycle. We began back in April. Far from being an 11th hour solution, we began, as the Constitution requires us to begin, one piece of legislation at the time in the most open process this body can implement, Mr. Speaker. The most open process this body can implement, where every member of this body gets to offer any amendment that they desire. 7 appropriations bills we've moved through this body, Mr. Speaker. And then it became apparent, as the Senate has moved not one of 12 bills, that process was going to be fruitless. Fruitless. Now, again, is that what the American people want from us? Absolutely not. Are we doing what the American people deserve in this body? Absolutely we are. And in my 18 months, I have not found it to be a Republican-Democratic problem. I've had it to be a problem of ideas. I said to my friend from Florida, I know that he believes in his heart every single word that he has just enunciated. He speaks for inspiration, Mr. Speaker. I have the great pleasure of sitting behind him on the dais in the Rules Committee, so it's always his words that inspire me before it's my turn to take the microphone. And I tell my constituents back home, they say, Rob, what have you learned in 18 months with a voting card? I say, what I've learned is it's not theater on the other side of the aisle. Folks aren't taking to the microphone for their 15 seconds of fame on television. They're taking to the microphone with heartfelt beliefs that they know in their heart to be a reflection of their constituents back home. And so as we hear two different presentations about what it is we're doing today, a presentation that suggests it's an 11th hour, a last-minute process versus that presentation that says we've done it all right in the openness of day. And here, 4 weeks before the deadline approaches us, we are going to take action to make sure that uncertainty does not further slow this economy. You know, I'm told, Mr. Speaker, that the fewer days Congress is in session, the higher the stock market goes, because at least nothing bad happens here. We're the problem, Mr. Speaker. Government's not the solution. Government is too often the problem. You know, the last Congress that passed as few bills as this Congress has passed, it was the 104th Congress, when Republicans took control of this House for the first time in over 60 years. Because they were elected then not to expand the size and scope of government, but to improve the size and scope of government, to reform those processes. What my friend from Florida says about 2005, 2006, unfunded priority after unfunded priority, I'd love to tell him he's wrong, but he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. And the American taxpayer knew it, and Republicans in this chamber paid the price for it in the very next election. That's the ace in the hole for America, Mr. Speaker. The American taxpayer. They're paying attention to what happens here. My colleague may believe that we're on the wrong track. I'll tell you, 18 months, I've never been more proud for what this institution has done. But we're going to find out when the American taxpayer speaks out in that referendum come November 6th. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased. 87 new freshmen in this freshman class. 2 more added. Please yield 2 minutes to a freshman colleague from Pennsylvania, Mr. Marino.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today regarding the continuing appropriation resolution. This week's violent ambush at the United States Embassy in Cairo and the brutal attack against U.S. diplomats in Benghazi serve as a blunt reminder that countries in the Middle East have been increasingly unstable and anti-American. The brutal attacks also emphasize the fact that the United States cannot continue to use taxpayer dollars to bankroll countries with no conditions. We should immediately suspend all funding for those countries that refuse to meet strict conditions and fail to take adequate measures to prevent the loss of American lives. Egypt has been one of the 5 top countries receiving the most U.S. aid over the past decade, and President Obama said he doesn't think we would consider Egypt an ally. Certain countries continue to serve as a safe haven for those who wish to cause harm to Americans and tear down our fundamental principles of freedom and liberty. Such actions merit repercussions, not a continued free flow of American tax dollars. When our nation has a debt of more than $16 trillion and people in my district in Pennsylvania are struggling to find jobs to support their families, it is past time that we reconsider funding to people that wish harm on the United States. It is time to end the practice of appeasement and take a staunch position regarding Libya, Egypt, and others in order to ensure a more calculated, tactful approach. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and the gentleman from Georgia reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Speaker, before yielding to my good friend and colleague, Mr. McGovern, 3 minutes from Massachusetts, I would just urge my colleague from Pennsylvania to know that all of us are mindful and rightly should be concerned about what is transpiring in the Middle East. But he cites to one set of finances, and I would urge that he look at how and why the United States is involved in a compact with the Egypt military for the monies that are distributed there, and not base it on what is happening today, but look at what has happened throughout the years to assist in stabilizing that area. It didn't just happen overnight. It happened as a result of a serious compact in peace negotiations. I'm very pleased to yield to my good friend, Mr. McGovern, 3 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, and I want to thank my colleague for the time, and I rise in very strong opposition to this rule and to the underlying legislation. Mr. Speaker, if I could create a rule that would best sum up the Republican leadership of this House over the past 2 years, this would be it. Because this rule represents everything we have seen over the length of this Congress. It's a closed rule that stifles debate. And it's a rule that makes an order partisan, meaningless legislation that will do nothing, absolutely nothing, to address the real issues facing the American people. I voted against the sequester because it was a lousy idea and a terrible way to run a government. But let's be clear, this bill does not stop the sequester. It simply kicks the can down the road once again. And it prohibits any effort to address our fiscal situation that raises a single dime of revenue. The Republican approach is not fair, it is not balanced, and it stands no chance of becoming law. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the American people are wondering why Congress isn't focused on their concerns. Where is the comprehensive jobs legislation, like the Make It in America plan? Nowhere to be found. Where is the middle-class tax cut bill that passed the Senate? Not on this House floor. Where is the bipartisan farm bill and drought relief bill that passed the Senate, or the Violence Against Women Act or postal reform? Not here on this floor. Where is the big bipartisan balanced plan to reduce the deficit? Not here. And where, and this one really bugs me, Mr. Speaker, where in the world is a full and fair debate on the war in Afghanistan? It's absolutely stunning to me that Governor Romney accepted the nomination of his party and asked the American people for their votes to be commander-in-chief without even mentioning the longest war in U.S. history, a war that continues to this day and that continues to claim the lives of American servicemen and women, a war for which we are borrowing tens of billions of dollars every month. Apparently, the Republican leadership of this House would like to ignore these big issues and instead focus on meaningless sound bites for their 30-second political commercials. It is no wonder that the public has the lowest regard for Congress in history. I guess the Republican plan is to do next to nothing and to get out of town as quickly as possible, even though we just got back from a 5-week recess, and hope that the American people don't notice we were even here. It's a sad day for the people of this House, Mr. Speaker. And let me remind my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, this is the people's House. It is not the house of big oil. It is not the house of big banks or big business or special interest super PACs. This is the people's House, and I hope the people take it back. I urge my colleagues to reject this rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back, and the gentleman from Florida reserves. Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just like to remind my colleague from Massachusetts how we ended up here. And again, we ended up in a way that I think that we can all be proud of. Take ourselves back to April of this year. Again, this is the 2013 funding bill we're talking about. We sit here in September of 2011. We're talking about, or 2012, pardon, we're talking about funding 2013 spending. We began this process back in April. Floor of this House. Bill after bill after bill passing in a bipartisan way. The Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Bill, Mr. Speaker. What could be more important and what could be more bipartisan? Passed this House 407 to 12. When we went through that bill, Mr. Speaker, we went to every single member of this chamber. Not just 435, Mr. Speaker. We went to every delegate as well and said, do you have a voice that needs to be heard on this floor on this issue? And gave every member that opportunity. And at the end of that, Mr. Speaker, which was just a free-for-all of democracy right here, it was our republic at its best, this House came together 407 to 12 to pass that bill. Mr. Speaker, 407 to 12. 226 Republicans, most of our number, 181 Democrats, most of their number, passed that bill. 407 to 12 for our military and our veterans. That bill didn't see the light of day on the Senate side, Mr. Speaker. And our failure to pass this continuing resolution today sees those dollars go to zero. To zero. Far from being an abdication of responsibility, this is the height of taking responsibility. Abdication of responsibility has already happened. I can't fix it. I can't change it. We did our business here in this House, but we are being held hostage, and by we, I mean we, the citizens of this country. I mean we, the voters of this country, those with the priorities of this land, we are being held hostage by a Senate that is finding other priorities other than military construction and our veterans. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't end there with military construction. It goes on. It goes through ledge branch appropriations, homeland security appropriations, energy and water appropriations, transportation, housing and urban development appropriations. How about transportation, housing, and urban development, Mr. Speaker? I mean, when you listen to some of the voices on this floor, there's a reason, there's a benefit to being a Southerner and talking slow. It gives your blood pressure time to come down just a little bit before the words begin to come out of your mouth, because transportation, including mass transit, housing and urban development, those programs for the neediest among us, passed this House 261 to 163 in a huge bipartisan majority. 182 Republicans, 79 Democrats came together to say, let's focus on the priorities of our constituents back home: transportation, housing, urban development. Let's move that bill through this body, again, Mr. Speaker, in the most open process this institution can imagine, where every single member has a chance to be heard, where every single member can offer their amendments right here in the well. There are no voices that are being quieted here. We all represent American citizens back home, and it's their voices that get shut out. Do we have a closed rule today on this continuing resolution? We do. I think back, Mr. Speaker, I know you do too, to H.R. 1 back in the spring of 2011. It's the only continuing resolution I've ever known of that came under an open rule, and boy, did we have a show of democracy here. It began on a Tuesday, Mr. Speaker. Congress was supposed to adjourn by Thursday afternoon, but by early in the morning on Thursday, it was clear we were nowhere near done. As a freshman, I was a little cynical about this process. I had a suspicion the leadership was going to close that process down because members had planes to catch and events to go to, and after all it was a continuing appropriations bill. You know what this leadership said, Mr. Speaker? They said, not on our watch. We're going to go into Thursday night, and I don't mean Thursday night at 9, I mean Thursday night past midnight. We're going to go all night long. We're going to go all night long into Friday. We're going to go Friday to noon and Friday through dinner and all night long on Friday night. And we finished at 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. Mr. Speaker, I jumped on the first flight out of Nashville, flew home, did a town hall meeting no later than 3 hours after we adjourned that Saturday morning. I was on fire because this House gave every single member a chance to offer every single amendment that their constituents would have them do. That was extraordinary, and we can't do that every day. We can't go marathon sessions 5 days, day and night. I'm young and vigorous, Mr. Speaker, but I got to tell you, some folks might not be able to handle it. I'm with you, Mr. Hastings. If you're ready to go those days and nights, I'll do them with you. But we did that. There are 12 appropriations bills. We did that in this body, not all in one package, but one at the time, and the Senate said no. Our choice here today is, do we close the doors at these agencies? Do we close the doors on these social services? Do we go through another one of those government shutdown scenarios that benefit absolutely no one? Or do we do the right thing, which is observe our budget caps, continue to reduce spending? That's right, Mr. Speaker. You know as well as I do, on these appropriations bills, on this discretionary spending, we spent less in 2011 than they spent in 2010. We spent less in 2012 than we spent in 2011, and if we pass this bill, we'll spend less in 2013 than we spent in 2012. Hasn't happened since before World War II. 3 years in a row, Mr. Speaker, of this body coming together and telling the American people we can do better with less. That's what this bill is about today, Mr. Speaker. Again, strong supporter of this rule, strong supporter of the two underlying measures. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My good friend from Georgia speaks out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, you're saying that we began this process. Open, and this democracy flourished, and you were so passionate about it until when we left at 5 a.m. in the morning, you rushed home and you were on fire. I'm curious to know, when we finish up here ostensibly tomorrow afternoon, what is it that would cause us not to be able to be here and allow, as you put it, every member to have his or her say for their constituents on this measure? But no, we're here on a closed rule. And I understand that the government has to continue, and that's why we are doing a continuing resolution. But I also know we could have done an omnibus bill, and I also know that my colleague and others were the ones that caused this country to come to the brink and our credit rating to be assaulted. And you're going to tell me that we can't stay here tomorrow, that we can't come back here after the holidays or tomorrow and stay here if need be to get this done? But no, we're doing it now before April, so that when we come back, we will be faced with the same crisis, and the only thing that's going to change is the faces and the places that the people come from. And all I'm saying is, let's do it now. Let's do those things that you're talking about. And if it requires 5 a.m. in the morning, let's do it at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm 76 and I'm still staying up. I don't know about you, but I need to yield to my colleague in light of his request. Go ahead.
I'm grateful to my friend for yielding, and I'd say to the gentleman, I think we would be here until 5 a.m. yet again. But our experience, as was our experience on H.R. 1, is time and time again we do the people's work here, and the Senate says, no, I have had no indication from the Senate that they will accept anything in that body except this continuing resolution.
Just to ask my colleague, you know, and I know you have farm interests in Georgia the same as I do, not necessarily the same, but we have farm interests in Georgia and farm interests in Florida. And the Senate did pass the Farm Bill. Can my colleague tell me why we don't have the Farm Bill on the floor during all of this period of time? We could at least do that in light of the disaster relief that took place.
If the gentleman would yield, I'd say that I regret I'm not high enough up the chain to know all the strategic decisions, but I will tell you that the bill that came out of the Senate is a sad 2-year bill that provides absolutely no certainty to any of the farmers in my district. It spends more and provides less certainty. And the farmers in my district say, Rob, we need a farm bill, but why can't you do it right? And I know my colleague would agree with me.
2 years rather than 5-year bill from? Because the 5-year proposal is what the chair of the Agriculture Committee, yours and my colleague, Mr. Lucas, is seeking to offer. But I don't want to get us caught in the weeds. Let me go ahead and yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Ohio, my friend, Mr. Kucinich.
Could I inquire of the chair how much time remains?
10 minutes for the gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much. I thank Mr. Hastings for the opportunity to rise in opposition to the rule for the CR. The continuing resolution contains $99.9 billion in the overseas contingency operation funds to continue the war in Afghanistan and to fund other operations in the so-called war on terror. This is on top of over $1.3 trillion we've already spent in waging war abroad. This is a war that costs U.S. taxpayers $2 billion a week. It's a war that, according to the Congressional Research Service, has cost the lives of nearly 2,000 U.S. service members and has resulted in another 17,519 being injured. Yet the war seems to have fallen from headlines in our national conscience, and this is wrong. We cannot afford another $100 billion on a war that will never result in stability in Afghanistan or the region. This war against Afghanistan boomeranged against the Soviet Union. It's boomeranging against our country. And, you know, when you look at the amount of money that is being spent, not just for the war, but for the United States Pentagon, we're looking at a fiscal 13 budget of $653 billion, spending more money than every other country in the world for almost combined for so-called defense. Now, we have an obligation to defend our country, but we also have an obligation for housing, for health care, for education, for retirement security. If you're concerned about Congress regaining authority under Article 1, Section 8, then we should be voting to end this war right now by striking the money for it. If you're concerned about the debt, then we should be voting to end this war by taking money away from funding, and then you could contribute that to resolving the debt. If you're concerned about emboldening radicals in other countries who are following in the wake of our invasions, then we should be taking the money out of this for more war. If you're concerned about the budget, that it doesn't have enough for jobs and housing and health care and education and the energy and the environment, then end the war now. Vote against it. If you're concerned about America taking steps to create peace, then we should get this money out of this budget, which creates more war. This is time for us to reclaim our country, which we're losing, not just to war, but to a national security state like yesterday when we voted as a House. I voted against it to empower security agencies to be able to intercept the phone calls of anybody in the United States who makes calls internationally. We have got to reclaim our nation. This budget or this CR doesn't do it. This is the same old, same old, same old war, national security state. Forget the real needs of the American people. I'm going to vote against this rule, and I'm going to vote against the underlying bill. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd say to my friend from Florida, I do have no further speakers remaining.
I have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close.
Thank you, gentleman.
And I thank